Well, US President Donald Trump and Ukrainian President Zelensky clashed repeatedly in their meeting at the White House yesterday. Zelensky urged Trump to be cautious with Russia, and Trump accused him of being disrespectful. Now, the Ukrainian president warned Trump that Putin's promise of a peace cannot be trusted, citing the Russians' his history of broken commitments. Now, in response, Donald Trump asserted that Putin has never gone back on agreement with him. The last 10 minutes of nearly 45 minutes engagement between the two leaders turned into an intense back and forth, with Trump shouting at Zelensky. Listen in to the heated exchange. Well, in the Oval Office yesterday, we saw a heated exchange between the two leaders, with Donald Trump, in fact, telling Zelensky that he's gambling with World War III and he does not want peace at all. In the visuals, you can also see that that was the heated debate, the heated exchange between the two leaders, with Donald Trump, in fact, shouting at Zelensky, and there was an intense back and forth between the two leaders. Now, the last 10 minutes of the nearly 45 minutes engagement turned into a heated exchange, with an intense back and forth between between the two leaders.
I'm talking about the kind of diplomacy that's going to end the destruction of your country.
Yes, but if you are not strong...
Mr. President, with respect, I think it's disrespectful for you to come into the Oval Office and try to litigate this in front of the American media. Right now, you guys are going around and forcing conscripts to the front lines because you have manpower problems. You should be thanking the President for trying to bring an end to this conflict.
Have you ever been to Ukraine that you say what problems we have?
I have been to...
Come once.
I've actually watched and seen the stories, and I know what happens is you bring them on a propaganda tour, Mr. President. Do you disagree that you've had problems bringing people into your military?
We have problems.
And do you think that it's respectful to come to the Oval Office of the United States of America and attack the administration that is trying to prevent the destruction of your country?
A lot of questions. Let's start from the beginning.
Sure.
First of all, during the war, everybody has problems, even you, but you have nice ocean and don't feel now, but you will feel it in the future. God bless.
You don't know that.
God bless.
God
bless. You will not have a war.
Don't tell us what we're going to feel. We're trying to solve a problem. Don't tell us what we're going to feel.
I'm not telling you.
Because you're in no position to dictate that. Remember this. You're in no position to dictate what we're going to feel. We're going to feel very good.
You will feel influence.
We're going to feel very good and very strong.
You will feel influence.
You're right now not in a very good position. You've allowed yourself to be in a very bad position, and he happens to be right about it.
From the very beginning of the war.
You're not in a good position. You don't have the cards right now. With us, you start having cards.
Cards.
Right now, you don't. Yeah, you're playing cards.
Mr. President.
You're playing cards.
Serious.
You're gambling with the lives of millions of people. You're gambling with World War III. You're gambling with World War III. And what you're doing is very disrespectful to the country, this country. That's back to you. Far more than a lot of people said they should have.
Have you said thank you once?
A lot of times.
No, in this entire meeting, you said thank you.
Even today.
You went to Pennsylvania and campaigned for the opposition in October. Offer some words of appreciation for the United States of America and the President who's trying to save your country.
Now, after the heated exchange, Zelensky abruptly left the White House without signing a critical mineral deal with the United States that Trump had demanded and suggested was a condition for future support for Ukraine. The joint press conference between the two leaders was also cancelled, and Trump, in a social media post after this, accused Zelensky of disrespecting the United States of America in its cherished Oval Office, and added that Zelensky can come back when he's ready for peace talks. Let me go across to Srinjoy Chaudhary, who joins us live on the broadcast with more details. Srinjoy, we saw not so successful meeting between the two leaders, but a verbal spat as well. What does it mean for the two nations?
Well, it was a disaster, to put it very simply, because what was expected was an agreement on minerals. Now, America would provide weapons in exchange for minerals. That was the basic issue. Now that no minerals are forthcoming, the deal has not been done. Is America going to supply weapons? And if America does not supply weapons, it will be a huge disadvantage for Ukraine and Zelensky. That's point number one. Even before this exchange, there was one word Donald Trump had used in the meeting. That was the word compromise. Now, compromise on what? At this point, Russia has about a third of Ukraine's territory, holds. Ukraine holds a very tiny bit in the Kursk area. Now, does compromise mean giving up on Donetsk, giving up on Luhansk, giving up on the Crimea? Is this something Zelensky and Ukraine ready to do? That is the problem. And if that is the compromise, then it's a very difficult situation for Ukraine. On the one hand, you're not getting the weapons from America to fight Russia with. On the other hand, the Americans are saying, you have to compromise. And now this public spat between Zelensky and Trump is something quite unprecedented. Very rarely in the history of diplomacy do you see such a public spat in front of the whole world.
Well, absolutely, and it goes without saying that this was a disastrous, in fact, meeting between the two leaders. I'm also joined by foreign affairs expert J.S. Sodhi and also by my colleague Rishabh. Rishabh, I'll come to you first. Definitely, this was an unsuccessful meeting between the two leaders. What does it mean for the mineral deal?
Well, see, mineral deal is, as of now, off the table. That is very clear. You know, the leaders could not even reach to negotiate the mineral deal, and this exchange of words happened in the Oval Office.
We are facing some issue with the audio of Rishabh. Let me go across to J.S. Sodhi, who's a foreign affairs expert, sir. There was a verbal spat between the two leaders as they met in the Oval Office yesterday. We saw the visual of Zelensky moving out from that meeting. What does it mean for the nation, according to you?
Jai Hind, Akansha. It's my honor to be on esteemed channel and a privilege to be with the esteemed co-panelist. President Zelensky has committed two big blunders in his life. First was after 20th May 2019, when he became the president of Ukraine. He provoked Russia to such a great extent that eventually it led to the Russia-Ukraine war starting 3 years back. And the second biggest blunder he has done today by provoking the American President Donald Trump. By both these provocations, he has brought immense trouble and agony on Ukraine. Well, President Zelensky should be aware that Russia never had war designs. In fact, it was the US Secretary of State James Baker on 9th February 1990 when he assured the Soviet President Mikhail Gorbachev that NATO will not expand 1 inch eastward. After that, it was America which kept on breaking the promises and NATO kept on expanding. And then when the Ukrainian President Zelensky came to power in May 2019, his series of actions provoked Russia into this full-scale war. Well, what Zelensky has done today in the White House will have severe repercussions on Ukraine, because now Donald Trump is certainly not going to give any aid and assistance to Ukraine. As it is, as we talk today, 18.2% of the Ukrainian land is in the full control of Russia. Ukraine has lost over 1 lakh people, citizens and soldiers. The times ahead will get immensely difficult for Ukraine because of the provocation that Zelensky has done today to Donald Trump in his office, that is a famous Oval Office.
Absolutely. Rishabh is back with us. Rishabh, as I was asking you, what does it mean for the mineral deal? What are the sources telling you?
Well, see, there are two things. Ukraine was never inclined to, sign the mineral deal in the form that it was. Ukraine was very clear that they need a paragraph or at least a line on security guarantee in that mineral deal from the Trump administration, which the White House was not very keen to put in. There were questions as well that what happens to the security of Ukraine, to which Donald Trump had said that Americans working in Ukraine will be the security. And that is something that didn't go down well with Kyiv for the longest. Though Zelensky reached Washington, he met the bipartisan Congress delegation as well. While most of the Congress members were in support of Zelensky, pushing for a security, safety security guarantee in the mineral deal, the White House was not in favor of that. And that's where the things started getting rough. And we then saw that how the exchange began between J.D. Vance, the Vice President of the United States, and Volodymyr Zelensky, the President of Ukraine. Then Donald Trump came in, and then the exchange of words, the heated exchange of words between the three led to the collapse of the summit. Zelensky was asked to leave White House as early as possible. The press conference that was scheduled was called off. The signing of the mineral deal was at the press statement in front of the media. That never happened. So as of now, we can say that the mineral deal is off the table. Donald Trump has been very clear that Zelensky, quote unquote, has disrespected the United States and does not want peace, while Russian President Putin wants peace. So this is something that is a policy shift that we are seeing from Washington. Till date, we have seen that Washington has seen Moscow as the aggressor in Ukraine. But here, Donald Trump, the new president of the United States, at the press conference, says that Zelensky is not in favor of peace, while Russian president is in.
Well, absolutely. Now it appears that the mineral deal is completely off the table, as my colleague Rishabh was pointed out. But as far as this meeting is concerned, we saw a heated exchange, a spat between the two leaders. And after that, Zelensky, after this heated argument, he exited without any mineral deal, is what we are learning. So we saw this heated debate in the Oval Office yesterday. Zelensky has been branded as disrespectful. In fact, after Trump-Zelensky heated argument yesterday, what we're learning so far is Zelensky exited without mineral deal. In fact, no agreement on US-Ukraine mineral deal pact. Zelensky has refused to sign US mineral deal is what we're learning so far. So as my colleague Garisha was also pointed out, the mineral deal is completely off the table right now. Let me go across to my colleague Srinjoy, who continues to be live with us. After this meeting, in fact, we saw that several European nations also rallied behind Ukraine. There were statements after statements on social media with the support for Ukraine. In fact, how does one read into this?
There's a clear difference between Europe, or large parts of Europe, and the United States after Trump became president. And that much is very clear already. First of all, countries like Britain, France, Germany, we are not clear exactly right now because they've just had elections, and many other countries in Europe have completely divergent views when it comes to Ukraine. Because at this point, the alliance between Europe and America seems to be at breaking point. As far as Ukraine is concerned, the French particularly are leading the European side. Macron himself seems to have completely different views on how to deal with the Ukraine situation than Donald Trump or even his predecessor, President Biden, had. So under these circumstances, there are two or three things to have a look at. First of all, this huge package that was coming from America, weapons, other aid, and so on and so forth, on billions of dollars, is that going to continue? The chances are that it will not. And if it does not, will Europe step up? Considering that Europe's spending percentage on GDP on defense is very low, overall it's only less than 2%. Is this something Europe will be able to do in the short term, very quickly? That's also something that needs to be looked at. So it's a very complicated situation. Perhaps the only beneficiary of this is President Putin and Russia, because he sees a situation radically different from what it was several months ago.
This is definitely a bad news for the two nations. Let me also go across to Dr. Dheeraj Kaul, who is the geopolitical expert. Sir, we saw a verbal spat between the two leaders, Donald Trump and Zelensky, in the Oval Office yesterday. We also saw that that was not so successful, in fact, a meeting. How does one read into this? What does it mean for the two nations?
Namaskar. Thank you for having me on the show. As you know, I'm based in New York, but I have another house in Pennsylvania, which was the real swing state. And I was involved as a data analyst in the data analytic company to look into Elon Musk's data analysis to see what are the top 6 reasons why somebody should vote for Trump during the election. And to be honest, if you look at the swing voters, one of the top agenda was to stop the wars and stop any potential world war. So as you are seeing, Trump is acting on what he had promised. And if you look at the numbers, my background is medicine. I'm a transplant physician. It takes decades to learn art to save a life. It takes a trigger, a bullet, a second to lose it. Battles are very easily started. It's the most complex thing to stop, as you know. And according to certain data, it's 120,000 people died in the Russian soldiers and around 180,000 wounded. But if you look at Trump's data, they're talking about 700,000 casualties on the Russian side, and Ukrainian side also 500,000, 2 million, depending on who you listen to. A lot of young soldiers, young lives have been destroyed. Ukraine, I have been there many times, and Russia, a beautiful country, has been destroyed. That's the fact. The other fact is it will take hundreds and billions of dollars to reconstruct that country. It's the same people with same values living across. So history will be the judge to see if Zelensky was a hero or he could have stopped the war. Like Trump rightly pointed out, that enough is enough. We need to stop this war. We need to stop the potential war. Having said that, Trump also had promised that he will bring the two wars, the Middle East war and this war, to halt, and also he will stop the leakage of essential dollars. We have a $35 trillion deficit. We have already given around 460 billion unofficially, and officially, if you look at $300 billion towards Ukraine war, and he's already talking about how to recover that. Because we in US also are going through a financial crisis. So if Ukraine has resources like essential minerals, which will be needed for satellite, semiconductor, which is the fastest growing industry right now, and obviously AI, ML, where I'm artificial intelligence, machine learning, which requires a lot of semiconductor high processors, where I'm involved. I think it's a fair way to approach it.
Absolutely.
But I would feel the way Zelensky was responding to Trump in Oval House is totally not asked for. We have provided unlimited support. When I say we, as in taxpayers of America. So he had to show some respect, and I think it was high time people stop this. He comes as a salesman, like Trump said, comes to negotiate, that keeps putting the support. But the people whose lives are lost, death and destruction is caused, there is no answerability. On top of that, it's an endless request for support. We need support in US, like Trump is saying. We have a million things to take care of. And the last thing we need to do is escalate and war and keep continuing. So Trump is answerable to taxpayers. He's delivering on what he has promised. And we don't want to be a policeman of the world for unnecessary wars. And that's a message very clearly said.
Well, absolutely. We saw this, in fact, verbal spat escalating between the two nations. It remains to be seen what really pans out of this. Back with the breaking inputs as far as the meeting between Donald Trump and Zelensky is concerned. Donald Trump lashed out at Ukrainian President Zelensky, saying that, quote-unquote, he overplayed his hand in the Oval Office meeting. Donald Trump also called for an immediate ceasefire and warned Ukraine to negotiate peace or risk losing U.S. support. He also said that Ukraine holds a weak hand and insisted, quote-unquote, we are not signing up to keep fighting. This is what Donald Trump has said, also saying that Ukraine is gambling with World War III. Listen in.
We had a meeting today, as you know, with President Zelensky, and I would say it didn't work out exactly great from his standpoint. I think he very much overplayed his hand. We're looking for peace. We're not looking for somebody that's going to sign up as strong power and then not make peace because they feel emboldened, and that's what I saw happening.
Let me get in a word from Foreign Affairs expert Jay Sodhi. Sir, Donald Trump has said that he wants peace. In fact, if Ukraine wants peace, if Zelensky wants peace, he can come back. Does it mean that future negotiations are on table still?
Akansha, definitely yes. Donald Trump has left the doors open. The onus is totally now on the Ukrainian President Zelensky. If he wants peace, he should come back, and I would say he should come back at the earliest. Because just few months back, Zelensky had said in a statement that the day USA stops its aid to Ukraine, it cannot wage a war after 2 weeks. And already the time is ticking. The more delay Zelensky will do for a peace deal, the more gains Russia will have in Ukraine. As on the date, they occupy 18.2% of the Ukrainian territory. With each passing day, their offensive will get very strong. They will occupy more land of Ukraine. It will be a very tough call. And what President Donald Trump said few days back, that very soon nothing of Ukraine will be left, he's absolutely right. It is now in the Ukrainian interest that Zelensky should come back at the earliest to the White House, sign the minerals deal, and ensure that a peace is brokered between the two warring nations. Else it will be grave trouble for Ukraine. As it is, they are not on a strong wicket as of now, and with such a display of, I would say, aggressiveness in the US President's office, certainly Zelensky will have more of it in the times ahead.
Absolutely. So in a way, Donald Trump has kept the door open as far as the peace talks between Ukraine and US is concerned. Thank you for all those details. With this, we're taking a short break. We'll be right back with more news and updates. Stay with us.